Alright, so this video is going to be going over different setups in AMT, how to trade them, just auction market theory really in general, but more so the setups. And we actually had a really nice setup here. I mean, you can see examples of the setups I'm going to go over literally everywhere. This video is going to seem like it's a really long and intense video. Really, the beginning is going to be explaining these setups, and then you can stay to the end and watch some examples of me showing you these setups playing out and talking through it, so you can get a little more like custom to it. But I have a little painting tool right here. So let's start off first. This is the volume profile, market profile, whatever, just something to see the balance areas in. And you could also just like eyeball it too. Like here, we're obviously in a balance. We're going to be trying to fade these lows. We're in a balance. We look under, accept, try to enter here or enter up here for shorts. And either one is going to play out, but we'll get into the details. But you need a tool to view balance areas, or you can just use the price action. Pretty stupid to use the price action. So first off, our first setup, the most basic setup you could have in AMT, is a test of this low. All right. So if we're in balance, the odds are, well, 80% of the time we stay in a balance. 20% or so we're in imbalance. So here, 80% odds we're going to stay in a balance, right? So you're going to be looking to buy over here, obviously. So once we come down here, you get in longs to the point of control. Come up here, you get in shorts, point of control, right? Very simple, a balance setup, okay? Mean reversion. Most of these are going to be mean reversions. All right, so your balance, you want to be taking trades there. You don't want to be trading here in this first standard deviation. You want to be aiming for the -2, -3 zone. All right, so you have those setups, simple. Now, additionally, if we break this balance, right, you don't reject, maybe your confirmation's like a higher time frame delta flip or something, we don't even accept back into it, we break. All right, we're at this -3, even lower, pretty much an LVN right now, or maybe another balance, whatever. We just break the balance that we were just in. Okay, now this brings us into two different setups, and it kind of just branches off like a tree, because once we have a break of our balance, so we can either reject the balance. All right, so we start in the balance. We can either reject it, the low, or we can break. Okay, or this is break, this is reject it. So if we break the balance, like here, we're going to have another two scenarios, or three, I guess. One, we just continue to rip. All right, so we continue to rip. Two, instead of just falling down, we come back and test it and we reject it again. All right, so we broke the balance. We're looking for us to fail to auction lower and accept back into it. It seems as if we failed to auction lower. We come back into this edge of the balance and we failed to accept into this too. So now we've officially broken the balance once we take this low, just looking lower. All right, so that's the other option. And then there's another option where we don't just reverse. Instead here, we accept into this balance. All right, and we accept into it. If we accept into it, this then branches off into two different trade setups. All right, now obviously if we accept, you can just mark it buy, put a stop, put a TP, there you go. Or if you're more technical, like most of you guys would probably want to get the best fill. You can look for a retrace to the edge of this balance again. So that's this option, a retrace. Once we have this retrace, you would want to get in long here, smaller stop, larger TP, and that's this option. The other option is we have no retrace. We just continue to bid this all the way up to this extreme. Now this is your second entry. All right, now you want to be looking for shorts. All right, and keep in mind it has to be with this context, obviously, because the reason is we've just accepted back into the balance. We had no entry here, but we know once we get up to here, since we've accepted into the balance, the odds are we're going to confirm that and reject from the top of the balance and come back to the point of control, right? So then we can continue to start ranging in that balance. That is the concept behind that. All right, so I'm gonna make a little list or something where we can visually see it and go over it really quick before I get into examples. This is pretty short right now explaining it, so yeah, I'm gonna make that list really quick. All right, so this is for imbalance. We still have to go to some other setups, but this is what I mean by like a branch. So we're in balance. We can either test these highs on the top of the balance, very similar to this day, very balanced day right here. So we test these lows, reject, reject, test these highs, reject, right? You could classify this as our balance, and then once we broke the low of the balance, but then we accepted back into it, so we could classify it as the next thing, which is, hold on, right here. So we're in balance. Now the next option is we break the balance. Once we break that balance, all right, we now have three things that can happen. These two are very similar. Essentially, we break it and we can just keep running, no entry until we get to the next balance setup, and I'll talk about that. Or we break it, come back to our balance, test it, and we reject. This is confirming the breakout, and this is the optimal zone to enter along. For like, you could target the next balance, so a traversal of an LVN, whatever. So a break, retest, go out, or a break, no retest, just keep pumping. Or a failed auction, what I call it. We break and then we accept back into, so we failed to auction higher. Okay, now once we accept back into the auction and we know it's not a breakout, we know we accepted back into it, okay, you then want to look for one of these two setups for an entry. All right, obviously you could enter market, target, point of control, but if you want to get a better entry, we accept back into it, and then you look for a retest, like a breakout, just on the top of the balance. Now, sometimes these retests don't happen, all right? If it doesn't happen, it will look like something like this, all right? We broke, we accepted, no retrace, we just traverse the whole balance. This would be your second opportunity to enter, all right? These zones, okay? Because what we're saying is, I don't think it's going to have a balance area. Shit. Right? Let me make it bigger. Now, for some of you, this entry is obvious, but this one's confusing because it's like, hey, we broke. We want to be getting in after this break, but the move looks like it's gone without us. Why would we be entering up here? Now, the reason is if we have our balance and we try to bid higher, we can't, and we just tank, this is showing us that we've just accepted back into the balance flawlessly. So now for us to confirm that we've really accepted into it and it's not just something that's like our balance, boom, we go to the new balance, new one, and we're just traversing all these pivots, just keep going down. All right, we look for a rejection, just like a normal balance trade, and this is where we'd want to enter. All right, and we'd target point of control, whatever you want. Okay, maybe even the val high or the ledge up here. So that's why we take this setup, because once we've accepted back into this balance, we're instantly going back to the mindset of this. We're in a balance. We want to be taking longs on the lows, shorts on the highs, and right here we get a rebid on these right here, or you could say retest, whatever, offer, whatever, same thing, at this zone, and that's where you want to short because you're in the balance mindset. Or we don't get that, but then we get it here, you want to long because we're in the balance mindset. Now once we get to this and you're looking for this entry scenario 2, what we could do again is just break. So that rare occasion would look something like this. We went up, right? We broke this balance. We came back. You didn't get your entry. Just kept going. Now you're looking for longs, right? You're looking for longs. You want to confirm we accepted and then long and catch some points right there. However, we break again. Now we transition back to this mindset. Now we're in this mindset. Now we want to see, okay, do we keep going? Do we keep going? Or do we accept? Now, again, if we accept right after this was another breakout, we treat this as another breakout. Okay, now do we accept into it? Now you can find another entry here finally. So if you were patient, you didn't FOMO buy the breakout, you didn't FOMO sell, well, FOMO selling would have helped here, but here it wouldn't have, or here FOMO buying at this or whatever, and I just deleted it all. There we go. But now after this breakout, if you were patient, you didn't get an entry there, right? You didn't get an entry here. You're waiting for an entry here. You're waiting for an entry at the bottom of this zone. It looks like we're breaking. You're still patient. You want to see if we reject from here or if we accept. You're still patient. We accept. Now we're going back to this mindset right here. Again, even though it's right after. All right, so you can kind of see how it's just continuous auction. Continuous. And if you get good at it, you should be in the right position. And then it's just finding your entries, which you have tools like Footprint, DOM, where you just mark it and you just read the price action. You don't need any confirmation. You're just confident in your price action. So yeah, those are the balance setups. You can screenshot it or just remember it, take notes. Now I'm going to kind of draw out some other setups where we're not in a balance, but we're approaching a balance. All right, and this setup can intertwine with a failed auction where we have another balance right here and you're playing the ledge, and you can see how all of this plays into each other and you can really build a model. All right, and this video is probably gonna be like 30 minutes. I'm just explaining the setups in depth so you can have a really good understanding. So yeah, I'll get on to the next setups. All right, so now approaching a balance. Okay, so if you get on and we're not inside a balance, all right, you get on for your session, we're not in a balance, then we're doing this. We're going towards a balance. Or maybe we just broke out of one and you could be looking for something here. And maybe there is something there, right? we just broke out of one and you catch that. Let's say you don't. Either way, if it's a breakout of a balance, and let's say your session starts here, you can catch that. If your session starts here and we've already broken out, now you're watching the next balance, right? And now for the next balance, you want to see the following. So coming into your balance, first thing we need to see is if we accept into that balance, and that's going to determine how we trade this, okay? So if we come into it, you're going to be looking at this ledge, all right, on the edge of the balance. We tap it. You need to confirm if we accept or failed to accept. If we failed to accept, you're instantly going to be looking at the balance we've just left to see us accept back into that, and it turn into one of our failed auction setups where you can find an entry here. Maybe you enter here if it's valid, right? You see these things all come together. So let's say if we reject, you're going to now maybe you enter on a secondary test of this, or again, we can reject, not test it, and just continue going up. Now here you wouldn't have a setup, but it would be the exact same thing that you just saw here, just up here, and with the added context that we just rejected this balance. Now you'd be looking for an acceptance. Once we accept, you look for an entry here, or it just keeps going and you enter on the extreme of the balance to confirm the acceptance. Or you can find an entry at this rejection if you're really good at the DOM, or you can find an entry here or maybe at the retest, okay? But the idea is we come to a balance and we reject it, okay? I just kind of went in depth there on all the little possibilities you could have after that and how they intertwine. All right, now we come into a balance and we don't reject. Now this is the exact same thing as before. You're going to be looking for this, or you're going to be looking for this. All right, we're coming down, we accept into it. Now you're looking to short this or long this. It's all the same in AMT. And this applies to higher time frames, so we'll definitely get into that. But yeah, those are all the setups. I didn't give them any cute names, but that's just the knowledge you need to consume and understand. Now, if you just want to turn the video off and just go look for it yourself, do that. But I'm gonna get into some examples. Today was actually a really good one, so yeah. Alright, so this isn't going to really be an example of a specific setup. I'm just going to be going through it, explaining to you the AMT that is going on. So I think it's best if we start with this as a first example. Alright, so obviously our extremes would be anything here, right? These are extremes. And then this is another balance zone. Right, we had this balance, it was half of this day, right? You can see we broke out of that, but nonetheless, this is another balance where if we start to approach it, we need to be watching the extreme. All right, so I'd probably put the extreme up like something like this, I'd say. Zones, and you can refine these zones with, I mean, it's pretty hard to refine a shelf unless you use deep order flow, but yeah, let's go to like a 1.5K vol. So let's do London Open, which is at like 3. All right, London Open, we're pretty much trailing this edge of the balance. All right, so you want to see us look above and accept above the extreme, or you want to see us continue to fall lower and wait for a retrace onto this extreme, right? But we essentially came into it, we broke the balance, we broke this low, we came up, we failed to accept higher, we failed to accept this, we started going lower. Here you could enter a short on this like break of the low, stop here, take profit at the end of this LVN or start of the next balance. All right, so London session, you just enter on a break of the low. It's just something simple, right? Something like that, or you enter up here if you use order flow. Okay, now we're coming into a balance. Again, remember what I said, when we come into a balance, we want to see if we accept or we reject. Once we reject, you want to be looking for a retrace into it for an entry, or you wait till we get up here to the balance and we actually accept further in. So we get here, we end up clearly rejecting it. Here there's an entry. Here there would be an entry if you were really good at order flow and reading the DOM. But here there's an entry. Here on this little spike down, that was 8:30 news. And then we start to bid these highs. Now, same thing, but now we have the context that we've failed to auction this. Now we want to see an acceptance above, right? A look above. All right. And then we reject it. And then we come over here. We don't really do anything here. We come back to it. We come down a little bit, but then we continue going up. Again, bidding this extreme. We still haven't accepted into it or anything. We're bidding the extreme, bidding. Nothing's happened. All right, now here we break through. Okay, so here I would be like, okay, we're accepting. I would be trying to long here, and we clearly just came straight through, but we're testing this lower extreme now. So now that we have accepted into this balance, we want to be taking longs in this block, in this like box right here. Okay, we want to be taking longs in this box because we've accepted into it. So here, I mean, if you're reading order flow and you have a good entry model, I don't think you'd get caught entering here unless you just limit the edge. But here we end up trailing down to the bottom of it. You could get an entry there. Then we're at the top of the box, or extreme, nothing really there. Now we have accepted into it. We're just on the bottom end. I don't know why it's like that, but here we're around this zone. So we're accepting it, but we're kind of on the bottom end. And that little leg up where we accepted was this right here. So now we want to be looking for a retrace into this box and treat it like we're already in that balance. All right, so if we were treating it like we were in our balance, you might have been long right here. Okay. Here we break the balance, you could say. We break the balance again, and then we quickly come back to it, test the edge again, and then we just start to explode, right? To the extreme of it. So there's your 80% odds. So this is a very higher time frame example of some of those scenarios playing out, and it's never really perfect, but I can go on a lower time frame. This is pretty low. Let's do 1,000 volt chart. Let's go to an example of a balance. All right, let's do this. All right, so what's this session? It's kind of the middle of nowhere. I want to go to like a 9:30 open. Yeah, this is 9:30 open. Right up here. All right. So this is pretty much the example we were just on, I think. But this is starting out at 9:30. Volume profile looks really shit, but you can define our balance as this. So call these highs, and I'd say this is our ledge. So you want to be looking for shorts off of 9:30 open from there. You want to avoid this little pivot in here. It's just an LVN. And then our low of the balance, I'd say, is this. This is the bottom. This is where you look for longs, right? So yeah, 9:30 opens. Let's just walk through a day. And then 9:30 opens. You already have this extreme of the balance that we've been in for a while. All right, we test it. We don't break it. We come back in. So now you're looking for just shorts if you didn't get in up here. And we just run down to the bottom of the balance. Now here at the bottom, again, you want to be looking for longs. Where you get in, if you get stopped, doesn't matter. If you miss this move, I guess that sucks. But here, you could have gotten in here. Maybe you get stopped on this, re-enter, whatever. We kind of just chop at the bottom of this zone or at the extreme. But if you're really getting in at the extreme on these lows, you should be fine. Now here's something actually interesting happens. We run through the extreme. So now we want to see if we, right, let me get out where's my tool? Hold on. All right, so in the example we're on right now, shoot, we have our little bell curve, top, bottom. 9:30 opens, we reach the top, we reject, come straight down to this bottom, right? And then we've had all this bullshit chop. Come down to this bottom, and then we just keep wicking the bottom of it. Bigger moves, but we keep wicking the bottom. And then eventually we break. So we break the balance we were just in. Now we're going to be looking for this, or this, or if we go up, shorting this extreme. Alright, so let's see what happens. So we're at the edge, right? We come down, we accept back into it, and I'd classify us accepting it. I look at the order flow, but I think it was like right here. I look at the order flow, but you can kind of just see that we've accepted into it. Now we come down, we test the extreme, really micro pullback, and we continue going higher. And then your next entry would be, if anything, shorting the extreme. And here we end up rejecting before that. So if you didn't enter right here, unless you're a momentum trader, you wouldn't have had an entry on this setup, but it's fine because the day keeps going. And then we again break this low, break the balance, and then again we accept into the balance, and now your immediate target is going to be like this point of control or whatever it is at that point. Yeah, you're going to be targeting this point of control, or maybe this. So there's this, we come up, maybe you get stopped out if you were, yeah, you might get stopped out if your stop's at the low, but if it's at the end of the extreme, you wouldn't. And then we come down, we test it again, come up, and here it's like, it's pretty much the same that happened over here. We kind of just balance out at the end. So we come back to it, and you're just trying to long this extreme until we break. So you'd keep looking for a setup. And then here we break, we're testing the extreme, and we break again. So you'd be looking for shorts, and then this is leading us to the example I was just on, where we short it to the next balance. So yeah, now just give me a second. Alright, so let's say you didn't trade this day, right? We're in a balance, and then there's this other balance right here, really close. Okay, but we're in this balance, we have the extreme right here, we open at the extreme, do whatever, and then we reject and we accept into this balance again. Now if there wasn't any pullbacks for you, right here it looks like there wasn't, it just accepted and we didn't even get a pullback, you'd be looking for shorts up here. And again, you might get stopped on one, but the RR is relatively high if you have a tight stop on these highs. If you don't, and you have a low RR, and you have a stop at this extreme and a TP at the POC, you should be fine. But yeah, we've accepted into the balance again. Now here we break the balance. Now we want to see if we accept into it. Here we reject the balance, and I wish I could, I'll split it right here. Okay, let me do this so we can see the val high. Alright, so here we had our balance beforehand, then this was the 30-minute candle that broke that. Now we want to see a retest of this val high and see what we do. We retest, we break. Now we'd be looking for longs, okay, on that break. So you could either get longs on this retest or maybe longs right here, but we keep going and I can't look, I'm not trying to look that far back, but in general here you might have been taking a trade if you were trading that early. Here you probably catch some shorts to POC. Here off of open you probably catch some longs right here, and then we kind of do whatever after that. But those are some examples. Let me just go to some random day. This is right before it. Let's take this balance, not too crazy, but yeah, this is a decent balance, I'd say. Let me hold on. Yeah, we've kind of accepted back into this balance right here and tried to get somewhere up there. So I'd be looking at this zone really. I'd be looking here. Something more so like this, I'd say. Yeah, it seems good. And then here our bottom of the balance, looking at this. And then we obviously have our other balance right here, which is very close right there. Okay, so this day, we've accepted into this balance. If you were trading this day right here, you could see that, okay, we've accepted into this larger balance down here and we've came lower. So if you didn't get an entry up here off of the open of us accepting into it, you could just look for longs down here. All right, and then again, balance trade here looks like it played nicely. Then we open at the balance area, we open again and we just shoot up. I think that was probably news, but yeah, that was just an insane open. And then we're testing the top of the balance, we reject it again. Let me drag this, drag this, drag this. Here we break for a while, for like a split second, and then we're testing this other balance and we reject, and then you could have gotten an entry here and TP at like the POC or whatever. And then here there's another entry for shorts since we've accepted into the balance. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. And then here obviously we open in the balance, we break the balance, okay, and we don't accept back into it. It seems like we were just ranging and testing these lows, or testing the top of the balance, and these lows were just testing that, and then we broke higher. So now our initiative is, okay, we're probably going to auction somewhere here, right, and build on. And if you can see on the right VP, this ended up turning into just a huge balance area, but it really had like one balance right here and one balance up here. But once we've started to auction off higher prices, right, and really accept higher, we're going to be looking at the extreme of this balance, which is, I'd like to say, this zone, to see if we accept back into it or reject. Here, you could have gotten stopped and thinking it was a rejection, right? We break, but I'd actually like to go on the lower time frame and see what that was. But we come back into the balance after accepting higher. We reject it. Boom, up. Now we know we're in a higher time frame balance up here, and we're rejecting this lower balance. Again, this day opens, we test it, we reject it, we rebid it, we reject it. Okay, and then we test it a couple more times, reject it. It's not perfect. AMT isn't perfect. Sometimes you can get chopped out. Every once in a while you think something's a break. You think, you think it's a breakout, and then it really just wants to make a lower low and then come back. And here you could get stopped break even. Or sometimes, like we saw in those examples, we come down to the low and we just end up chopping at the extreme and maybe reaching the point of control before we break, and then we came back. We ended up rejecting, came down here, right? And then we came back, and then we started just ranging until we accepted. We accepted above the extreme. Then we came back down, testing the bottom, and then we came up and then just did some of this. Right, so it's easy to get chopped up in this, or maybe get faked out, but this context is very nice to have. All right, now I would go on the daily chart, very higher time frame, but to be honest, it's like, well, first of all, this is a huge fucking move down. Trump likes to surprise us, but on the daily, it isn't too crazy, to be honest. I think it's better to use it on the TPOs and maybe merge the TPOs for multi-day balances. Like here, multi-day balance came up, multi-day balance came down, testing this low, or testing the extreme. Here we accepted. Now we accepted into it, we broke, kind of just ranged over here, came back, we're looking to accept up here, and it kind of just chopped over there. But yeah, that's pretty much it for setups. I didn't even have a look at the RTH. I don't know why my TPOs are tweaking out right now. Yeah, it's RTH. RTH is a little more smooth and easy to read, because here we have previous days RTH balance, and the lows of this balance and the high of this balance all line up to give you kind of a pivot, and then you could short this RTH. Pretty easy, more simple. RTH is really easy to read. Daily has a lot of little moves that, like, RTH traders aren't going to care about overnight as much, so that's why RTH works a lot better in my opinion. Yeah, that's AMT setups. The next video I'm probably going to make is going to be on levels or building a strategy. But you really just saw how most of the levels are found. It really gets into refining it with, I'd say, the volume profile, getting the very LVNs of it, or using something like a footprint to find like zone where we had the most buyers in that shelf or something like that. But yeah, that's the video. Pretty long, went on a rant. Those examples weren't the cleanest, but that's how AMT is. You should end up profitable as long as you're entering with the correct like risk management and your stop placement's good. And you take into account volatility and everything. But yeah, that's the video.